Hi, everyone. My name is Anna. I teach the course Climate Change and Climate Justice for Rise Out. This is a really interesting course that combines some of the foundational scientific knowledge needed to understand climate change with some of the big picture historical, social, political dimensions that impact climate change and that climate change impacts. So I think if you're watching this, you probably have a sense that climate change is incredibly relevant and urgent to pretty much every being on this planet. I also find teaching this course incredibly meaningful just because it's a way into some really deep and big picture questions that, again, are relevant both to those scientific natural processes and those social and historical forces. I come to this teaching both with a background in classroom education, also more than a decade working at Harvard University with high school teachers through outreach programs, and then most recently completing a really interesting program in climate change education through Antioch University in New England. This was a really interesting program where we delved really deeply into a lot of the just peer-reviewed, evidence-based psychology and communications theory around climate change education. One of my big takeaways is just that anyone learning about climate change needs not necessarily, a barrage of facts and information, but really some big picture conceptual understanding and frameworks that's going to help connect to broader questions of worldview, of a sense of space and place, and of agency. So for us in this course, one of that big conceptual organizing factors is systems thinking, which is present in a lot of disciplines. We look at it through the environmental scholar Donella Meadows. I find system thinking an incredibly powerful way into thinking about complex systems, thinking about the relationship and flows between parts of a system and how to intervene and change systems. And again, that's something that we can bring both to looking at carbon flows and then also looking at social processes like redlining, like looking at different theories of change around intervening in social and political systems for climate action. So we look at causal loop diagrams. We try our hand at drawing and understanding a lot of these different ways to represent information, and again, taking a big step back to develop our conceptual understanding. And then that's going to help us give sort of a framework for thinking about some of these questions around power, agency, accountability. Who's responsible for climate change? How do we know? How do we hold them responsible? And then looking at a real spectrum of theories of change around climate and having students have some different opportunities for integration and investigation on their own. We also, this isn't a course about social and emotional learning, but we take seriously that this can be a very challenging topic. So we employ some best practices around just naming emotions that can come up and bringing in small ways, interventions like looking at poetry, like connecting to where we are in space and place. I also take really seriously that while this can be a challenging experience, I deeply believe that learning about climate and climate change can be a powerful and inspiring experience as well. It can help us connect deeply to others, to our own sense of purpose and agency, um, and to a sense of imagination and what's possible. We also, a fun part of the course is that we've had guest speakers from places like the Union of Concerned Scientists and even the Vermont legislature, where they passed in the past couple of years a really foundational climate superfund bill. We look at the implications there, and I look forward to bringing in other courses to other voices to the class this year. And I hope you all might be some of them. Thanks so much.